has been a while since we've caught up with members of Detroit City Council, and there is a lot to catch up on. So let's dig into it with Council Member at Large Janae Ayers, Council Member from the 1st District, James Tate, and from the 6th District, Councilwoman Raquel Castaneda Lopez. So good morning, everyone. We appreciate your time, and I want to start really with some positive news that we did here this week. Dan Gilbert's announcement that he and his wife will invest $500 million in Detroit neighborhoods over the next 10 years, as well as help 20,000 families with unpaid property taxes. Councilwoman Ayers, while that is a huge help, of course, if you had a list of priorities in terms of neighborhoods or exact changes you want to see, what would that list look like? What do you want to see happen?
Well, I think the first component to even a neighborhood is discussing whether or not you have people that are living in said neighborhood. And so we know that property tax and the inability to pay them is a driving factor on how many people are actually going to be residing there. So I think this is a valiant effort, and I thank Dan and his wife for just their willingness to step out and help somebody else. So it does fit in my list of priorities, but I just want to see how this all plays out. I know that they've partnered on a few other things, and they put in place the requirement for being enrolled in pay as you stay. So we'll see how this works out, but I think it's a step in the right direction.
Anyone have any other priorities they want to see? Sometimes we use the word neighborhoods and it's pretty big. I would like to see something specific that's on your list. Mr.
Yeah,
Tate?
I mean, for me, it's just for me, the main thing, quite honestly, is to see what's already being contemplated. I have not yet seen any details. We heard the press conference, and, it sounds very good. It's very uplifting, but, as a member of the elected body for the city of Detroit, it's imperative for us to make sure that we identify all those details. And again, it sounds great, but the other piece is how do we connect people to those particular resources? And that's one of those challenges that we have on a regular basis within the city of Detroit. And I can't imagine that there won't be the same situation here. So again, it's about the details. We of course want to see how these dollars can affect the tax debt that many Detroiters have no ability to pay. But we also have to look down the road. Right now, we have a moratorium on water shutoffs. We've got to figure that out. We've got to figure out education. We've got a lot of issues that we have to address within the city of Detroit. Even when we say that we're on the upswing right now, that doesn't mean that we don't have a number of holes that we still have to patch. And I'm looking, again, forward to the details and see what type of, what's in the details. And I'll just leave it at that.
And that leads me to my next question, because while we're talking about Detroit neighborhoods in need of help, Detroit's businesses are also in need of assistance as they've been dealing with this pandemic this past year. What are the best ways to reopen the economy? And we'll send it over to you, Councilwoman Castaneda Lopez.
Yeah, thank you for that question. For me, small businesses have always been at the center of our local economy. We know it's our small mom and pop grocery stores or restaurants that employ a much higher percentage of local people and that really contribute the most directly to our local economy. And so for me, it's trying to think of how can we get forgivable loans without all the burdensome paperwork directly to small businesses? How can we get more forgivable grants to go directly to these small businesses to make sure that they can continue to thrive, because they really have been sustaining and keeping some of our neighborhoods afloat for decades, and the pandemic hit them the hardest. And so I think sometimes the focus is on attracting a lot of these larger corporations that may be able to hire a lot of folks at one time, but it really is the small businesses that are the fabric of our community that make up and have the biggest impact on our local economies. And so I'm looking for folks. Would love to see Dan do some forgivable grants to our small business community. Would love to see the federal government and the state roll out some more forgivable loans for folks and for all the entrepreneurs that really have kept the city going during hard times.
And what about, and I'll send this to really anyone who wants to address this, we've got $880 million in COVID relief money. Is there a priority that we should put a list on in terms of how we spend those dollars in the city of Detroit?
I have a list.
I know, right?
I
try to let the budget.
Everyone wants to spend that 880.
Yeah, I think though most important, at least to me, I think we all have really cool ideas about what we'd like to see and how we like to make sure that it's appropriated. But I think the most important part is to make sure that our state legislators are working together so that we can even have the money released to us in the proper amount of time. We know we still have federal dollars that have not been released to the city of Detroit. So that's the number one concern for me. Before I bring out my laundry list of things I want to see, I really want to see it in our coffers first.
Right. And Councilman Tate, you had some ideas yourself?
You know, I mean, it comes down to just making sure that we get those dollars coming into the city first, and then understanding what are the parameters, what are the hoops that we have to jump through, even as a municipality, and then coming up with the rules to determine that we stick with that, because having that large amount of money can be challenging for us, because we have to make sure that it's accountable, that we're accountable, that every dollar is that we're transparent in how we spend each and every one of those dollars. So again, while we want to talk about, it's always great to talk about these projects that we're looking at. As a legislator, for me, the details are what counts. How do we go about spending these money? Do we have any requirements that we're going to have to endure as a result of it? So that's first where my mind is, because we haven't received those dollars yet. Let's first find out what's required. And then those mega lists that we have, and I said mega, the mega lists that we have, we're going to make sure that they are addressed, and making sure that number one are the services that we have to address.
Well, I've got you there, Councilman Tate. I want to bring in the topic of marijuana licensing in this city and the priority to include legacy Detroiters. Where are we in that process?
Yeah, I was going to talk about some of those dollars. Hopefully, can go towards legacy Detroiters getting them in, but I don't know about the details, so that's why I didn't want to put that on my list.
Okay.
But in terms of legacy Detroiters, we've had well over 700. I think the number now may be close to 800 to 900 members of the city, residents of the city of Detroit, who've applied for legacy Detroit status. We're right on the cusp of the licensing applications beginning to be accepted on April 1st. A lot of appetite. Right now, what we're trying to do is make sure that what we are put in place on a piece of paper is executed properly in the way our process is. Again, I go back to making sure transparency. The city council was just received the standards of review from the administration to determine how they're going to award these licenses. We're going through that with a fine-tooth comb. I believe it's actually before the Public Health and Safety Committee this upcoming Monday. And so there's going to be I'm sure some conversation about that, but I'm excited about the opportunity of Detroiters actually having a chance to not just be able to own a business and then end up getting swapped out, but because of the way that we built this ordinance, this provides an opportunity for generational wealth for legacy Detroiters, folks who lived in the city of Detroit have been frozen out of this industry, and many others for so many years. So we're looking at right the wrong. The city of Detroit has been disproportionately impacted by marijuana arrests, so it made no sense at all for us not to make sure that Detroiters have the best opportunity in Detroit to succeed in this particular industry, and that's what we're planning to do.
I want to bring in Councilwoman Castaneda Lopez on this, the riverfront, and it's a complicated topic, so I'm going to try to make it really, I guess, as basic as we can for folks to understand. There's confusion. There's a little bit of outcry from the public in terms of the viewpoint on the news that broke last week that some proposal was actually approved that involved privatizing the Port of Detroit. Is this a good move? Is this a done deal? Where do things stand?
Yeah, in real simple terms, the deal that the Port Authority is in is horrible. It's completely lopsided. And so definitely want to do what we can to help them get out of that deal. At the same time, I do not support the current deal on the table because it would privatize the port. And so I'm a big believer in that we need to maintain access to the riverfront public. We need to hold on to our port as a public asset. And this is really about, protecting and preserving the history of that port with the historic Bablo Island building, which was built by Albert Kahn, designed by Albert Kahn. And so it's around the deal, I think, is really a question of how do we protect our public assets? What other routes can we pursue as it relates to protecting the port and helping them to get out of this really horrible agreement with the maroon companies to ensure that that port continues to be in the city's possession for generations to come. And so right now, I think what's being presented is a quick fix, a short-term solution that's not really in the long-term best interest. And so we hope to have a public meeting about it very soon. We just met with the Port Authority this morning, just got a copy of all of those documents that we hope to share very soon with folks. So stay tuned for more conversations.
So to clarify, this is not a done deal. There still is time for the public to share their concerns.
Good question. Yes, it is not a done deal yet. It has to come before City Council, whether we want to give up our interest in the property or not. I'm really interested in pursuing the options of potentially eminent domain, or there's a triggering a clause in the agreement if we could enter a new agreement
Okay.
with the Ambassador Porch Company. So yes, more to come, more public engagement for sure.
And real quickly, as we wrap up, Councilwoman Ayers, we just got to talk real quick about vaccines. What a response at Ford Field, but at the same time, we still have to get that message out. We do need more people to say okay to those shots in arms if we want to get back to a quote normal life. What are your thoughts?
Oh, absolutely. Just at the height of the pandemic, I had an opportunity to volunteer at the testing site. We were able to secure $10,000 donations when thermometers were, few and far between to come across. And at this point, we need to get as much information out to the public about what it is. If you've already gotten vaccinated, share your story, because I think there's just an overarching fear factor that people have of the unknown. And as long as it's out here, we've got Ford Field, we still have TCF Center. I'm doing my part. I know my colleagues are doing their part to ensure people that we have space, we have opportunity, and we actually are in a better space than most other places throughout the country with our ability to access the vaccines. And so I think as long as we continue to educate and we empower people with the information, we'll be on the right track. I just hope that everybody still realizes no matter if you have the vaccine or not, put your mask on still, wash your hands still, keep socially distanced, and I think we'll be okay.
All right, we thank you very much for your time. It's always good to hear from Detroit City Council because there is so much going on. I want to thank you all for your time this Sunday morning, and of course we'll be following up on a variety of those topics that we did touch base on. All right, we will be back to wrap up in a moment.